It's the first time I've done this, so, you know, I really don't understand, but I guess we called the,
Follow the agenda, we call to order.
call to order, okay? And I guess we got a quorum. And then, so next now, the roll call.
Can I borrow the list? Diego Benavides.
Here.
Nick Benavides. Onyx Benavides. Daniel de la Rosa.
Present.
Alex Arregui.
Here.
Eduardo Ochoa.
Here.
Ofelia Mislan. And Luis Ramirez.
Okay, so
We have a
now
quorum.
we go to approval of the minutes.
If there's no discussion on the minutes, I'll make a motion on the table to approve the minutes.
Can you just wait in your car waiting for us to show up?
I made a motion.
There's a motion for approval of the minutes.
So we're gonna call for approval of the minutes.
Second, now you can have discussion.
Okay. So public comments, okay? I have one, and
Did you vote on the minutes? Did you approve the minutes, or do you want to discuss it?
yes, yes.
He needs to approve the
Yeah.
minutes.
Okay, can you pass this around? And just, you know, as we're going along, but look at the one from the AC and the one from the city.
Mr. Arregui, you need to approve the minutes
Oh,
before
okay.
we move to the next
Thank
item on the
you,
agenda.
thank you. I approve the meeting, so,
Yeah, you asked for a motion to approve.
a motion, please.
I already made a
Okay.
motion.
So they
All's in
approved it.
favor?
Yeah,
All's in favor?
so it's okay. All right, we go on.
Aye.
But we need a roll call.
Yeah.
You guys call in favor.
Okay, so we're good to go. All right.
All in
Anyway,
favor?
public comments.
Aye.
Okay, next item is the public comments.
Yeah. I just want to pass this along. And as you can see, it's AC water and city tap water. And look at the results after it dries, if you look at the difference. But anyway, so now, anybody else have it?
Before comments to me, and we can clarify. Yes, sir.
Can somebody upset you, because I'm really hard at hearing and not, you know, so you might be talking, I probably won't hear it, so that, you know, we can process, you know, a lot easier. Would you like to do that?
I'll take it, yeah.
Okay.
I'll do
All right, great.
Can this be PDF survey to us?
Yes.
Email? Sorry.
I can send you PDF copies of all the information.
Mr. Chair, both Nacho and also with Cardura and myself with the senior group are here to, if you have any questions about the timelines on the master plans for water and wastewater. Well, we just got it, so. We'll review it, if we have any questions, we'll have it on the next meeting.
Just one quick feedback for us. So you've been presented, I guess, a schedule, and that shows the items for the wastewater master plan. We've also been presented a progress report on the water quality component of this. Let us know which format you like better. There's slightly two different approaches, but whatever you guys like better moving forward, we can adapt to that.
And the level of detail, just kind of look at the reports and just see what is it we need more, because I'm trying to give you like a snapshot, a picture of what's going on. Okay. If we're done with those two, or, because the next issue is the presentation that I'd like to introduce. You can introduce yourself.
Sure.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Earl, and I'm a director with the Legacy Water Supply Corporation. And Jeffrey Earl, my son, is with me today. He just graduated from St. Mary's Law School and passed the bar. We're happy for him.
Congratulations.
We actually have a law firm as well. He's joined our law firm, so we'll be working together, and it's a real blessing to do that. And Legacy Water Supply Corporation is here today to give you a brief but a very informative presentation on a water resource that we've come to find right at Laredo that can provide water to Laredo as a supplemental and emergency water source. And so with that, if you'd like, I can go ahead and do the presentation.
Mr. Chairman, if I can.
Sure. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and move on from the water master plan. I guess I'll go back. So item number 5, water master plan report, and item number 6, water quality assessment and optimization report. That's that information you had here, right?
Yes.
So does anybody on our committee have any comments or questions on that before we move on?
Just to review, do we have any questions for the next?
Okay. So we'll make note that we're going to go and review it after the meeting. If we have any questions, we'll follow up via email to staff.
Mr. Chairman, for your clarification, we also have one of the modules that is being worked on as part of the education piece on the water quality, which is the water disinfection. There's also one on your water notices, there's another one on your system and on your wastewater system that are going to be forwarded. The level of detail, that's up to you all as well. Please let us know what you'd like to see on those modules if you need those within any additional detail or less detail.
Okay.
Before we put them out for public consumption.
Okay. We'll go ahead and look at that. So, committee, we'll just go ahead and review it, and let's look at the level of detail. Is everybody good with it, or wants more or less? Let's report back. Let's report back to staff on that. So, if there's no further comments by the committee on items 5 and 6, let's go ahead and move on to item number 7.
Oh, okay. That's this, okay?
No, item number 7, I'm sorry, is the secondary water source.
Oh, okay,
That'll
yeah,
have to-
oh, yeah, but yeah.
And I'm going to speak hopefully loud enough for you to hear me. If you have any trouble, I can walk around that side and you can hear me maybe.
I can hear you, you're pretty loud, so I
Okay,
can
good.
hear you.
So by way of background, I already introduced myself, but I'm an attorney by training and also have had a vast amount of experience in water law, water production. Over the last 30 years, I was in-house counsel for the San Antonio water system, have represented water clients both on the user side and the producer side throughout my career, and I'm very blessed to be part of the Legacy Water Supply Corporation. And we want to provide you this presentation today briefly about this supplemental water supply that has been found and is available to the City of Laredo should the City of Laredo choose to pursue it. Next slide. So Legacy Water Supply Corporation, working with a single landowner entity in Laredo, has about 13,000 acres of well fields that it's planning to drill out in this area right here, the area shown in blue. And to give you an approximation, the Laredo CCN is the blue lined area in which you have your water service area for public water supply. So as you can see, the Legacy Water Supply fields in our project is actually right at your CCN. It's not far away, it is right here in Laredo. It is a new water source that has been confirmed. It's adjacent to the CCN of Laredo, adjacent to major transportation arterials of 83 and of Highway 35. It's less than 15 miles from Bob Bullitt Loop, and it can provide the city of Laredo with a supplemental water supply. So how do we know this? Next slide. Well, we've been drilling deep water public water supply wells already in this water field. And we've engaged the services of LRE Hydrology, who are on the call remotely via Zoom today as well. And we've been working for more than a year on examining, developing, and confirming this water resource. So we have drilled water wells, public drinking water supply wells are being drilled to a depth of over 3,600 feet. We have contracted with Hydro Resources, one of the largest drillers in Texas, that have recirculating drilling equipment for clean well production to drill these wells, and invested millions of dollars in doing this. We have found, we've done geophysical logging, we've done seed analysis logging, so the results I'm showing you today aren't just speculation, they're based on real findings out of the ground from the aquifer. We have found progressively coarser sands as we pursued this endeavor, and there are multiple water-producing intervals, which I'm happy to tell you are shown to produce water that is within or very close to being within public drinking water standards, which is huge. That's always been a challenge for this part of Texas. Next slide. So what we've done is conducted a complete geophysical log analysis of these borings to find out exactly what this water quality looks like. And Mike Keister, are you on the line with us? Oh, he did, okay. Oh, the presentation is Mike. So our hydrologist can come back on after this and answer any questions you have about it, but I can go through this as well. What we did is we did resistivity logs, natural gamma logs, spontaneous potential logs, and porosity logs to verify in multiple different ways what the water quality is, what the quantity is, and what the transmissivity of this water is throughout the sand formations. And the preliminary evaluation shows that in this deep Carrizo upper Wilcox, which has a top of aquifer of about 3,034 feet, and a target interval between 3,034 to 3,472 feet, there was established that there's a estimated net sand-bearing area of almost 80% of that water column is net sand-bearing, meaning you're drilling through sands that are coarse, that have a lot of transmissivity. The water can flow through them quickly, efficiently, and does in fact do so. And because of that, the water quality is better. When water sits stagnant in the sands or any kind of geologic formation, it leaches the minerals and pollutants from the rock into the water. And you end up with water like this glass right here that's full of a lot of pollutants. But when water can move quickly, it's fresh. It's clean water because it keeps moving. It doesn't have time to leach out these minerals. And so the porosity that we found, indicated here by these graphs that show the large line going to the right, the further to the right, the more permissive the water can flow through the rocks, the cleaner the water is. And these indicate with electronic logging the amount of resistance, and it shows that there's a lot of sand and not a lot of clay in those same zones. So it's the best of both worlds for water production. So it's possibly slightly brackish. What we found is it's probably better than 1,000 TDS, which is drinking water standards, out of the ground. Out of the ground. And if it is slightly brackish, it would not take very much at all to treat that water to drinking water standards. Next slide. So again, this is not based on guesstimates. This is real, actual, hard data. And these are pictures of the sands pulled from the well boring on which sieve analysis was conducted to engineer the screens for our public drinking water supply wells. And as you can see, there are levels at which these sands become very coarse and very permissive with regard to flow of water, meaning the water is very clean. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So what does this mean? We looked at this data in a number of different ways. There are 4 primary ways you can determine the potential water quality for groundwater. Each of these charts is a separate result of each of those methods of analysis. And what we found was this line in the dark dashed line right here is 1,000 TDS. 1,000 TDS is drinking water standards, out of the ground drinking water standards with regard to TDS. And you can see the number of hits we had in which the water is within drinking water standards. Over and over again in this production zone, we see that. And so what we did was we targeted those zones and closed off all the other zones within the well shaft by having them case solid, and then we screened only those zones which are target zones, and we pressure cement off the rest to make sure the water quality is as high as possible coming out of the ground. It's an expensive process, but it's worth it because you get only the best water, and you preclude getting into water that has heavy contaminants or any kind of pollutants that would throw off your water quality and cause you to do more treatment. So when we did all this analysis, next slide, we found that through the sieve analysis, the sand content and size, we have increasing sands with depth, a higher percentage of large grains that result in our ability to take advantage of water production zones where the sand is coarse and the water is flowing quickly, like an underground river. So it's clean and not contaminated by outside pollutants or leaching pollutants from the rock or formation it's flowing through. Next slide. So we use a groundwater availability model to model all the science we picked up from doing our actual research and drilling this well and doing the product of it. And we found through hydraulic conductivity, which is the rate of water passing through, transmissivity, and storativity, how this aquifer can store and provide water and then be made up when you pull down that water, how fast it can make up that water, have consistent water production. We looked at all that. We also looked at the lithology, the hydraulic conductivity, the passage of water through the rock, again, the transmissivity through the sands, and the sieve analysis. What we show is that there's very little drawdown on these wells. For example, at a rate of 300 gallons a minute, and we're projecting these wells to be able to produce in excess of that, 400, 500 gallons a minute. We're being conservative, but we'll know for sure exactly what they produce and the drawdown effects by November of this year, because that's when the actual 3-day pump test will occur, and we can have that real data. There's no question about it. Yes, sir.
The storativity, that figure, can you put it in some kind of perspective?
Yes, sir.
Please.
So how big is the water tank under the ground that you can pull from? And how fast can that water be made up once you pull from it? So if it takes you a minute to pull out 300 gallons, how long does that aquifer take to make up that 300 gallons through, in essence, recharge or reentry of water in the formation? And that's a basis of how large the formation is and how fast the water can flow into it from its origin source, which is up in the hill country, where the water is falling on the rocks and going down into this aquifer, where the aquifer comes up and meets the surface. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's the ability, the potential for the aquifer to store water and give it to the Laredo community, and how fast it can make up the water that's taken out. Sorry, let me turn it off.
So basically, you're looking at drawdown.
Drawdown, that's exactly right, yeah.
It's not so much storability, it's your drawdown and how fast that you start to put pressure on that well and you draw it down.
Yeah,
Whatever your
if for
volume
an
is.
individual well, you're exactly right, you draw down.
Drawdown.
But when you have a well filled with 30 wells, then you get into storativity. So
Right.
it's drawdown, but also how much water can be stored and drawn
Absolutely.
down, and how fast it can be made up. Which you're exactly
Sorry,
right.
I'm late, what wells or what aquifer are you referring to?
Go back a few slides.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, you're gonna need this.
Oh, yeah. This is the well field we're talking about. It's 13,000 acres of well fields, Legacy Water Supply Corporation. This is your CCN boundary line. This is 83 and 35.
Right at Camino Colombia?
Yes, it's right where it's Camino Colombia intersects with 35.
So you've identified, and what are you, you're in the Carrizo or the Laredo Sparta?
The deep Carrizo.
The
The
deep
Laredo
Carrizo.
Sparta has some decent water quality, but it doesn't have the storability and it doesn't have the capacity to provide the kind of water that Laredo needs long-term for an emergency or supplemental source.
How many wells do y'all have out there?
So we're currently, we have a total of 36 wells planned currently. We are drilling we already drilled the first well, we're in the process of contracted to drill the second well, and we're completing the first well. The thing that's taken a little while to finish, we're waiting on the pipe to come in with the screens.
It's on a ship.
It's on a ship somewhere outside of San Francisco.
That's
yeah.
all we've been hearing the supply chain.
Right, yeah. But we have confirmed that we will have that pipe in November, and I'm not gonna lie to you. Timing is critical on this, and I'll tell you why in a minute. For Laredo, for everybody in Webb County, timing is critical, not so much from that pipe coming in, but because of GMA 13, Ground Management Area 13, and the things that they're doing at the moment as we speak, that could change your availability of water, but also your availability of public money, grants, to deliver your water supply. And I'll get into that in a moment, but let's,
How deep are those wells, 3,000 feet?
they're over 3,000
They're over
feet.
3,000 feet. How many millions, do you have any estimation, how many millions, you have, how many acre feet you have?
37,000 acre feet
37.
conservatively is available.
37,000.
And now go back to this drawdown chart, it'll show you why we know that's at minimum the availability. Because we have over, roughly 700 feet of production zone. And we're focusing in on 400 feet of that, which is highly productive and very, very clean water. Remember I showed you those spots. And so when you look at the actual sieve analysis, which is the best thing to look at with regard to transmissivity, how fast the water can go through, your drawdown at 1 foot is, very small. It's like 100 feet. And as you go up to a distance between wells of 10,000 feet, you almost get to zero, or you get to zero. So our well field is spaced, to be conservative, at 1,500 feet, well to well. 1,500 feet, which means our drawdown is only a few feet. And that's at 300 gallons a minute per well. So at 600 gallons a minute a well, we're still under 20 feet of drawdown. So the more water you can get per well, minutes per gallon, gallons per minute, the less wells you have to drill to get to your goal. So at 350 gallons a minute, you're looking at about 27, 28 wells to get to 22,000 acre feet a year. And that's only pumping 360 days a year, because you want to leave 5 days off for well maintenance. Just take care of things, lubricate the pumps, do what you have to do. So you take 5 days off. So we only conservatively say 360 days a year of pumping per well, not 365.
You don't think that aquifer, you do more of a municipal well there, where you should be able to do larger and do like 1,000, 1,200 gallons
You
per
certainly
minute?
could, yes, and we're looking at doing that, but our initial wells, we're drilling the size, will yield 1,000 gallons
Cost
a
might not
minute.
be cost prohibitive.
That's the problem. The bigger pipe size you get, it goes up astronomically in size. Especially on copper-bearing pipe, which is what you want for prevention of corrosion.
Correct.
So, long-term. We'd rather pay the money up front to do it right, and have a long-term good well. So it's a balancing act between pipe size, pump size, amount of electricity it takes to get it out of the ground. And so we believe these wells, I believe the wells will do well over 450 gallons a minute, even at the size we're using. These are all certified, engineered, public drinking water supply wells that are being built. So in summary, we're currently drilling and completing public drinking water supply wells. It's ongoing. Pilot holes, geophysical logging, sieve analysis, that's all been done. This is not guesswork, that's been completed. The well design has been finalized. The well field is large enough to put in hundreds of wells. So we're not going crazy with this. We're trying to be realistic in what we need to do. The well completion is expected in November, December. Production testing and sampling results by early 2022. We're trying to push that forward to November, December. If we can get the pipe in, it's all we're waiting on is just the spring pipe. That's it. The contractor's ready to go. The rig, I don't know if you've seen it, they're out there. In fact, we're going on to drill another well right now with the same deep rig. We have very fine to medium grade sands, production level, and we anticipate higher hydraulic property values than what's in the groundwater availability model. And what does that mean? Well, in Texas, we have these groundwater management areas. Laredo, Webb County's in groundwater management area 13, okay? Which is a board made up of different water-related suppliers like Winter Garden, Evergreen, different water purveyors. They're all on this board, okay? And they all sit there and decide within a multi-county region that's within Region 13 or GMA 13, how much water is going to be assumed to be pumped out of the ground in each county. Okay? That's their job. And they make those predictions and those proclamations, and they roll that up and send it to Region M, which is a bigger water planning area. And Region M finalizes that and sends it to the state. It becomes a state water plan. Okay? We're in the process right now. That only happens once every about 10 years. And we happen to be in the process right now where that's happening. And GMA 13 is going to make its findings and finalize those in around November, December of this year. It'll go to Region M. Region M will finalize it, it'll go to the state, it'll be done. Now let me tell you about Webb County. Webb County has never gotten really a fair shake in that process because no one from Webb County sits on this board.
I do.
I'm sorry, you do.
There's two of them.
But you're on GMA, you're at
I'm
GMA
on
13?
Region M.
No, Region M, yes, y'all are Region M.
Right.
But Region M can only do
Right.
with what the GMA.
But we still get a short shake on it,
You get
because
a
it's
short
controlled
shake.
by the valley, and
Yes.
they have all the water down
Yes,
there.
exactly.
They control the water. I mean, they're 20 years ahead of us as far as water's concerned.
Exactly, and this is y'all's chance to catch up. And here's how. We've been going down and meeting with GMA 13 board, and actually asked the city to go, and they did. Sure, I went to this GMA 13 meeting, the last one, and said, hey, you know what? You need to predict more groundwater being used from Webb County, because we need it for an alternate water supply for Laredo. They only have 7,000 acre feet of groundwater coming out of Webb County right now, roughly.
Yeah,
That's
it's
just
not a
what's
lot.
currently being produced by ranchers.
Yeah, it's agriculture,
Agriculture.
minimal.
Nothing for y'all. Now, it's not that you can't withdraw the water. Webb County has no regulation on groundwater withdrawal, none. It's not you can't withdraw, it's that the state won't help you pay for any infrastructure unless you're on the plan. So it's critical that this plan be amended to include at least, we're asking for between 22,000 and 35,000 acre feet in the assumed pumping in the future from groundwater in Webb County, so that you have that as an option for the county, for the city, and the community to use for groundwater. That's why it's so important, the timing's critical. So we know that it's much higher we can produce than what's in the availability model. And we know the groundwater is estimated to be within or easily treatable to drinking water standards. So this long-going problem that Laredo's had with regard to a secondary water supply that's reliable, clean, terrace-proof, ability to be used confidently to grow the city and provide for water can be solved right here in your own backyard. You're all on this committee, I know, because you love Laredo, you care about the community, and you want to solve issues related to utility. One of the big ones of which is making sure you have an emergency and supplemental water supply. We're here today to talk to you about doing that in a way that can benefit the city and benefit the city council, this committee, in moving forward with that solution. Next slide. So what's our proposal? The terms of our proposal is to do a city and legacy memorandum of agreement to confirm the resource. Because the first thing you want to do is measure 3 times, only cut once, right? Be careful as you move forward. So what we are proposing is that the water resource be tested and confirmed by Legacy with no cost to the city. Legacy Water Supply Corporation's already invested the money, committed the money to do that. We'll continue to do it. We enter into a memorandum of agreement with the city that the city can come into that process to verify everything, but we're paying the cost of it, okay? Once the confirmation of water quality, availability, and quantity is confirmed by everybody, and everybody feels comfortable with that based on the pump test and everything later this year, then we enter into a wholesale water supply agreement, or WSA, providing that Legacy makes no profit from it. Now, why is that? Legacy is a quasi-governmental, non-profit entity. It cannot make any profit from the sale of water. Its goal is to facilitate getting water from a source to a customer. That's it. And that's the beauty of using a non-profit water supply corporation. So the parties enter into a wholesale water supply agreement, providing that Legacy makes no profit from the sale of water to the city. We provide it at cost. City agrees to acquire 22,000 acre feet of potable water per year from Legacy as an emergency and backup supply under the agreement. Legacy finances and constructs the required production and supply facilities based on the city's water supply agreement and the related, reserve supply payments. And the city gets to sell the 22,000 acre feet of water at a profit to its retail and wholesale customers. So you become the regional water purveyor because you have this 22,000 acre feet, you control it, you get it basically at cost, and it's already treated, and it's provided to the areas around you, including the city itself, and you can actually sell that to make revenue for the city and for the water system. Now, these are our suggested points of agreement. It's all subject to negotiation, of course, but this is where we're coming from, okay? So again, Wellfields are up here, Laredo's down here, El Pico Water Plant. We've talked to the utilities director and about where would be the best point to interconnect. You already have an existing, you've already spent the money and have the vision to do this 60-inch interconnect main. So you have reliability, you have redundancy. between El Pico all the way over to 35. So what we propose doing is building a new supply main for treated water coming down and interconnecting to that 60, which gets you water to both treatment plants, and you can take it into your system to feed the entire community of Laredo, to the extent possible with good, clean, fresh, treated, ready to drink potable water. The estimated well field that we're just, not the land itself, the land can produce more than this, but the well field we're looking at is a 37,000 acre foot per year well field. It's fresh potable groundwater, can be delivered at affordable price to the city. Proposed regional interconnect supply main to the city's existing 60-inch water main, and provides the city with an emergency and supplemental water supply in perpetuity. Next slide. So what are the next steps? Very simple. As I understand it, this committee was established by City Council and entrusted with the task of examining all these options and coming back to the City Council with recommendations. So what are the recommendations this committee would need to make to move forward on this plan? Well, regardless of what you do or who you do it with, the first recommendation we're suggesting you make to City Council immediately, even before you issue your report, is to request the City Council to pass a resolution addressed to the GMA 13 board to amend the desired future conditions for Webb County to include 35,000 acre feet of groundwater withdrawals per year to allow for state grants and loans to pay for your infrastructure. No brainer, absolute no brainer. You should do that, in our opinion, right away. Because the City Council needs to pass that resolution, as you know from the water planning business. These groups don't do anything unless they're asked to, and it's shown that there's serious potential for the use to be happening. The city is clearly the biggest water user, biggest water mover in Webb County. If the city's not willing to tell them, hey, we'd like to increase this limit, they're not gonna do it. So, again, Arturo came to the last meeting and spoke to them and said they are looking at, the city is looking at groundwater as a regional solution, a long-term solution. But you're dealing with your competitors in essence, because all these other groups, they want to keep water for themselves. And so they won't increase the yield of Webb County unless they have to, right? It's easier for them not to do anything. So we're suggesting you ask the city that. We've already asked the county to pass a resolution like this. I've met with each county commissioner except the judge because his property is very clear, very near this well field, so there's a conflict. And all the commissioners on board with passing a resolution, doing the same thing, asking GMA 13 to up the amount of Webb County. So we're gonna be sending them a resolution draft to have the county actually act on that, hopefully here in the next day or two. They'll act on it at one of their future meetings before November. So that's the first thing we're suggesting you do. The second thing is we're asking that you include, this committee include the Legacy Water Supply Corporation plan in your committee report to council, and make a recommendation to proceed forward with the MOA between the city and Legacy Water Supply Corporation to provide an emergency and supplemental water supply for the city of Laredo. It doesn't cost the city anything to do it. It confirms the resource and sets the city up to be able to make the decision, go or no go, once the resource is completely and comfortably confirmed by all parties. And that's our presentation. I'd like to answer any questions you have, talk about this so that you're, yes, sir.
David, I think I had sent, I don't know, you had a chance to talk to Tom Ray, our consultant?
I have.
Okay, so they are because council give them the task to come up with alternate water source, and they are ready to present to council in November 15.
Yes, sir.
So I will strongly recommend, because to get with them, to include this one at that time. Council, I know you wanted to meet with me, I'm here.
Yes.
And Mr. Yates, but we can meet with you because they provide tasks to the consultant.
I understand.
And that's why I don't wanna.
No, totally get it. It's important to keep that straight with regard to who's doing what and not step on it. And once we found that out, we totally respect that. And so our hydrologist has been engaged with Mr. Ray. And they're getting him all this information so that they can consider it and put it in their report to council. What I'm suggesting is not that you go away from what council's directed your consultants to do. That's the right thing to have them do that, obviously. You wanna respect that. But to the extent y'all make recommendations to council, I want you to be aware of this and to also give your voice of your opinion on the issue. Not to not do what council has asked for, but just to be ready to perform your function as a committee to the extent council needs you to provide them with recommendations.
Okay.
So there's Jordan. Jordan
And my
is,
second question, the 22,000 acre feet, we using in the summer, how much? Arturo, about 48?
48, yes.
Okay, so this is the situation we are in. We can produce 85 million gallon, but we don't have demand for 85. We have plant capacity 85, so we're producing about 45, 48 million gallon. This is an emergency supply. That means we have to always have this one in reserve. And those are some of the things we have presented to council. That means even if I buy this water, I cannot sell it, because the moment I sell it, it's no longer emergency reserve. That means I buy 20 million gallon a day, I have to produce less 20 million gallon on our water treatment plant, which we already paid millions of dollars. So these are some of the things the consultant gonna look at it and say,
Right.
what is the impact on the rate? Because it
Right.
has to come from the rate.
right, because you have obligations to your bondholders. And you've already issued debt to build these very nice water treatment plants. And that debt has to be paid for. And the only way you pay for it is through the rates you charge for water. And if you aren't selling the water going through that plant, then how do you pay for it? What I would say to that is this, there's several things to consider at the moment. One is, I don't know how long ago that the debt was incurred to buy those plants and build them. But I would wager that the interest rates right now are far less than they were then, because they're historically lower than they've pretty much ever been in our lifetimes. And so there's an opportunity, as long as there's not a prohibition on your bonds, to look at refeasing or refinancing those bonds at a lower rate to save money. That's always a good thing to do. And it gives you an opportunity to look at those bond clauses and modify them so that you can have a blended sell rate. In other words, as long as you have rates to come in and sell and meet your debt service, they won't force you to use the asset you built to meet the debt service. Their big concern is getting paid. The way they normally do that is make it restricted to that asset being used, you know. But that can be worked with your bond counsel, your financial advisors, the city's financial advisors, and everybody else. It's a real blessing that God's like put us in a situation where we have interest rates that are historically low as they've ever been. We have a water field that we've just discovered and confirmed that's ready to go in Laredo's backyard and all these things. Just so you know, Legacy Water Supply Corporation is moving forward with this water supply regardless, because the family that owns that land up there, the Walker family, is developing that property and will be using that water for their development as well. So it's not happening because someone's trying to come and sell something to Laredo. It happened because the family up there is developing their property, needed water, and they found it. God blessed them with this resource, these coarse vein of sands that run right on their property that has this water in it. What we want to do is share that resource with Laredo to bring that blessing forward and have Laredo use it to answer its water situation long term. I do have,
Wake up here.
Hello?
You didn't pick me up, you were supposed to pick me up.
Hi, this is Mike Easter with Ellery Water.
all right, great. So Mike is on the phone, and this is Jordan. Jordan and Mike are both hydrologists with LRE Water. LRE Water is the hydrologist that's working for Legacy Water Supply Corporation and the Walker interest on this well field. They've been doing all the science and analysis logging, and they're also available to answer any questions you have. And LRE, so you know, we've gone through the slide presentation, and they've seen all the graphs and charts, and we can go back to it if we need to by sharing screen. But, you know, if y'all have any questions for them, I know your time is precious, and I don't want to overtake, you know, or overextend our welcome. But if you've got any questions, Mike and Jordan are available to answer any scientific questions or hydrological questions about the validity of the well field.
Of course, it's just what Rio brought up was a good one, about it's more for storage, not for selling.
Yeah, and those are the things council will decide, and part of the master plan, we'll look at the rate study including the secondary water source, because
Yes.
it's the most needed, but it is the wish of the council. Can they justify the rate increase based on this one? So that's their political thing they have to do.
Right. And
Our
the
job
best-
is to present them.
Yes,
If you
sir.
want it, then.
Yep. And because the rates are so cheap right now on borrowing money, I'd submit to y'all and also to the council that there's no better opportunity than now to secure that infrastructure commitment and have it ready to go for the long term, so you have it. And you're not faced with a situation where something happens with the river, or your intakes can't bring in water that's clean enough for you to treat, or Mexico doesn't honor their international agreements to have water in the river, or pollutant discharges to the river, things like that, and you need the water, and suddenly you don't have it, and then the front page news story is, 300,000 people without water on the border. You know what I mean? That's what we're all trying to avoid, and that's why y'all are looking at the issue. This does that. What is the cost of that? Well, we're trying to get that done at cost, the cheapest possible cost to the city possible. Why? A rising tide lifts all boats, right? If Laredo's secure with water in its future, everybody's secure. And our development's secure, right? The Walker family's development's secure because it's a secure environment here. People are willing to come and invest and commit to bringing jobs and industry and warehouses and stuff like that. If it's not there, then they don't. And so it's everybody's benefit to solve the problem. And we want to do our part in making sure it gets solved with you as your partner, for everyone's benefit.
Rita, is there any possibility that storage, we can maybe partner with Corpus, because Corpus has a big need for secondary water source. They're always stretched, because I know.
We want it all for ourselves. We gotta protect
We
ourselves
can't
first,
afford
forget
to
what
give
Corpus.
Well, the other.
Because I know we've looked at options on pipelines, because we were looking at water actually further north of you.
Yes.
And that was gonna go to the valley, because you've got a lot of cities and municipalities that are stretched on water. We've seen it on, over the years on droughts. And Corpus is one of them, and we were looking at running a line, on some of our models, to go to the valley and accommodate, Corpus, just like we get stretched with water, so does Corpus.
Yeah. And I'll show you something real quick. Bring back up the Google Earth image.
They'll disconnect them.
You can share a screen. You can share a screen, can't you? And bring it up that way. Go back to PowerPoint. And open that back up, and then you can share your screen. Share. And then, there you go. Now you're sharing your screen. Go back down to this one. So the cool thing about this is, you've got this water fill right here. 255 comes out right here. So one thing you can do is stub this water out, and as the outer loop gets built, you bring that water main with it, so you have a supply for all that future growth out here as well to bring additional tax base to the community and everything else. But that pipe can go on down to feed, to his point, down 83 to feed, the valley, or it can go back the other way to feed Corpus. So, because the well field can yield the water to serve more than just Laredo, but Laredo can be in a position to benefit from that and be that regional answer. You go from being the party on the border that didn't have enough water to being the regional solution to the whole area if we do this correctly, which is what we want to do.
Have you looked at any numbers, preliminary numbers?
We've run some analysis and we can get into that with y'all. I don't think a Zoom call is the right place to do it, but we can certainly get into that, and they're very attractive numbers. Because water can be provided at a very, very reasonable rate, especially with self-extruding pipe construction, with two double-barrel 16-inch pipes rather than one bigger pipe, or three triple barrel 16 instead of one bigger pipe, which helps you with redundancy. So if one pipe has a problem, you can still have water flowing, shut it down, fix it, whatever. It makes a lot of sense. It's also cheaper because it's self-extruding. You don't have to buy segments of pipe that come together. Labor is cheaper. A lot of things like that, and then valve it every mile, so you can segregate your pipe pieces and then do your interconnects and all that kind of stuff.
What kind of pipe are you gonna use?
It depends on what y'all want. really, it's up to y'all to decide what you want. What we looked at as the most, a reliable but most cost-effective is a type of resin-produced self-extruding pipe, because it's actually produced by the machinery as the machine moves forward, it's producing the pipe. And it's a very, we basically can over-spec that pipe for a larger, thicker wall, higher pressure pipe. And then as you lay a section of it, you valve it every mile, you pressure test it to make sure it's sound, and then it becomes part of the system. If there's a problem, you relay that mile. It's cheaper to do that than.
So you're looking at those fusible pipes?
Yes.
That's most, right now, that's the most available in.
Absolutely. It's the most available, it's a solid and good pipe.
Right?
We're doing it right now.
No, but they make it in Mexico, produced in Mexico.
It's produced on site, really. It's
Yeah.
just you bring the resin in, or pellets, depending on what kind of machine you use, you feed it, and it manufactures the pipe on site.
It's like a black poly kind of
Looks like, yeah.
Yeah, keep talking to Tom, and as I said, this will be presenting on November 15th to City Council. At this moment, we are prohibited to talking to any secondary water source. That's
Yes, sir.
due to the council action.
Absolutely.
But hopefully, November 15th, they will give a direction, yeah, proceed on this route. At that time, the
Correct.
city is really, every councilman I talk to, mayor just talked to me, is they are interested on this. But due to some legal issue, I can't talk to.
Right, no, you wanna keep everything really clean and make sure there's no conflict. We totally get that. Ethically, you wanna do this absolutely right, unquestionably right. What we would ask from this committee is, you've seen the presentation, I can email it to you if you like. I would like to get your feedback on what you think could be done to improve the presentation, what questions you have that we could, give more information on, that kind of thing, because when it does go forward, having y'all look at it and input is very meaningful, very important to make sure we can do the best job we can responding to council should they want to go forward with it, right?
Yeah, so Rhea, I guess from our committee perspective, I mean, there's not much action that we can take since council has
No,
already
you
directed.
you can take the action.
I mean-
You are an advisory committee, you can provide a recommendation.
Advice.
to
I mean,
council. Yeah, we can
from what I'm
advise.
hearing, I would certainly recommend that they touch
We
base with
can't
the consultant.
negotiate anything.
Correct,
We
yeah,
as a
yeah,
staff-
yeah.
Staff can,
Yeah,
but you
understood.
can, you're an advisory capacity board, you're charged with advising council, giving them your recommendations, opinions. Go back to the last.
I mean, the way I see it, if council's already directed a consultant to look into the secondary water source, I mean, personally, I think it's just a good idea for you all to make contact with them.
Yes.
And get on their radar screen, and
Yes.
so when they're presenting to council, this is another option.
Right.
Well, and then your first recommendation, you'll either come from
That's the thing I want to.
from the engineering, or from you,
Yeah.
or from this
Well,
committee.
The one that's not on anybody's radar screen and not being asked for to
Right.
do, the consultants to do,
Right.
is this one right here. And this is the one I'd like to
That's
ask
very
y'all to
important.
take, it's very
Yeah.
important, guys. I would like to ask y'all as a committee to actually make a motion and vote on whether or not you want to make this recommendation to the council. This recommendation does not involve doing a deal with us or not doing a deal with us, anything. This recommendation is protecting your options, period. And not doing it keeps you from having groundwater as an available resource that the state would help you pay for the next 10 years.
You can make the recommendation
Yeah.
that the engineer put together documentation and submit it to this
city.
group.
Yeah.
On behalf of the city.
Correct, on behalf of the city.
I mean, I certainly, speaking for myself, I guess anybody else can chime in on the committee, but, Mr. Garcia, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, I'm not familiar with the whole GMA.
Well, the GMA, to me, the opportunity of future funding that the state has to where the city can participate, say, building that line, where we could get funded through the Texas Water Development Board. It's a source that could be there in the future.
Yeah.
Don't lose out on it.
We don't wanna lose out on it.
Yeah, I think, and then Nick too, I mean, I know you said on some of the similar
So,
to
it's-
me.
it's
I
just-
don't think, from our committee perspective, I don't think we have anything to lose to recommend to council to look into that or to add that to their system. I mean, I don't know about the, 35,000 acre feet necessarily, that specific number, but
That's
generally
very-
speaking, I don't see an issue with recommending to council to pass something like that. I don't know if anybody
It's
else.
something to
has any
protect the
comments
future
on
of
that.
Laredo, because it may
Yeah.
not happen the next 10 years, 20
Sure,
years.
sure.
But it's something
But I
that's
think
there in the future.
it makes sense to me that it's probably a next step that needs to be taken in order to put us in that next level.
And because of the importance of this issue regionally, this water issue regionally for Laredo and this whole border region, the TCEQ already has guidelines and stuff with regard to border utilities and things like that in these areas, that if you got the city to pass this resolution and the GMA 13 made that amendment, and it gave Region M the ability to make that amendment, it got into the water plan, the cost, whether it's $35, $45, $55 million to do this project, could be paid for with state grant money. Because it's a high priority to get this border region secure with regard to utilities. But you don't have the option of doing that unless they increase the groundwater production assumptions. So that's why we're suggesting that to you. And if this committee feels confident enough to make a motion and pass it, recommending to council that they consider passing a resolution asking GMA 13 to up that presumption, I think it would be very wise and prudent for you to do it, in my opinion, for what it's worth. But I also hearing that from your staff, and I think that not doing it, because the timing is such that city council have to consider that at one of their next meetings before the middle of November, when the GMA 13 is set to vote on finalizing their numbers. That's why it's such a kind of urgent thing.
When is that meeting?
November 17th.
November 17th,
I believe.
Right. It's already been set.
You know, I think it's important going forward, you know, we might have some monies in the infrastructure bill that could pass, and, I mean, these projects are not gonna be any cheaper.
To get the Region M plan amended, you have to have the desired future conditions set.
No, I think we should act on it. I mean, do we have a quorum? Do we have?
We have a quorum.
Okay.
I guess I'll entertain a motion from someone for that resolution. I don't think I can make a motion here, Chairman. No? I can? Okay. Well, I'll make a motion, I guess, as chairman to request city council pass a resolution to address the GMA 13 board to include the desired future conditions for Webb County. And I will say, I guess, just to modify what I see on the screen there, I would leave it up to, utilities department to determine what acre feet you all see is reasonable in that motion. But generally, to make a motion for that request to city council, as I stated, I guess.
I second.
Okay,
Second.
second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. I guess, I don't know if I need to make a motion on that, but I just.
If you wanna amend it, just say up to 35,000 acres.
Sure,
This way we are.
correct.
We have a limit.
Okay, I don't,
I'm just suggesting because you
Yeah.
made future growth.
well, I don't, yeah, that's why I'm, without any studying, I don't know how much of that research, I mean.
Mr. Chairman, if I just,
Yes, sir.
from the consultant side, just suggest maybe 50, because if you're going to be bound to
Right.
hold 22,000 emergency water sources,
Sure.
then you will never have enough water to use it as a
It's
supplemental.
better to have a larger number than our needs,
Well, then I don't have an issue amending it to include up to 50,000 acre feet of groundwater withdrawals per year. And if anybody has anything, I'll entertain a motion for that amendment.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank y'all for taking the time to visit with us today. It means a lot to us, and we just are grateful that y'all are doing this job. It's not an easy job. Looking at all this stuff and sorting through it all, and you're doing it as volunteers, and I really appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
certainly, as Rhea stated, touch base with the consultant and keep track with the consultant. If they're directed on the secondary water source, then, I mean, generally speaking, I think the more options we look at, the better.
Yes.
So touch base with them
Yes, sir.
and have them presented directly to council.
Yes, sir.
My recommendation.
We sure will. And Jordan, you got that direction, right? All right.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I guess, last thing, if we could just get a copy of that presentation,
Yes,
Yeah,
shared with
We'll email it to the
review.
staff,
Yeah.
your staff, and then they can get it over to you. Is that okay? We don't want to do that without going through.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, just the staff.
Thank you. It's a good.
All right, God bless you all.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
David Earl.
Be recording.
Jeffrey Earl.
Hey Dave, Mike Rogers, Mike, nice to meet you. How are you? Good.
All right, y'all.
Okay, so, moving on with our agenda.
David, if you can just send me the draft resolution.
Yes, sir, I will
So
send
I
the
can
draft,
have city
I'll send the
attorney
resolution
start
they passed today, so that I'll do that right now, so you have it before the meeting's over. Thank you.
Moving on with the agenda, we'll go on to, item number 8, underground water irrigation. And,
Yes.
Then I'll open the table to,
Okay, what I'm gonna talk about is that, an underground watering system that is very efficient, basically because it doesn't have the 50% law that you do when you water overhead. But the two systems that I have developed in 6 years, one of them uses salt water for irrigation. And you could probably say, how can it be? But I'll prove it to you. And so I started from the beginning, and I went to an irrigation class, and it was a waste of time. And so coming back, I knew a system that waters underground, but it's for different application. And it's a septic tank system. And if you look at the drawing, the way it works is this waste comes into this water tank with about 500 gallons. And the solids go to the bottom, but the water keeps rising. And you get to a point where then that water is transferred to a drainage field, 5-4-inch pipe with holes. And so right there's a lot of water. But if you go to, they don't have anything like this in the city. But if you go to a ranch or a colonia that have that, you will always know where that place, that field is, because it's green all the time, year round. So that tells you that you want to have something green around, you got to put a lot of water. Because they say that a family of 5 uses from 10 to 12,000 gallons a month. Okay? So that tank is only 500 gallons. So 900, let's say 9,500 gallons is in that field. That's a lot of water. But what I did with that is that this application is sure. So I copied the system, the drainage system, and you turn the page, and I did the same thing that they do then, but I'm very close to the surface. And when they say you see the holes, the raised up, okay? So I discovered something there that many people don't know. And for example, when I filled it up, and there's water retained there, right? That water is there. 6 hours later, it's empty out. So what happened? It's 2 of the 3 phases of water. All waters evaporate. And when that water evaporates, it spread out through those holes and wet the ground because it's still water. Okay? And so I discovered that something that a question I always had driving on the highway, and even here, and say, who waters those plants out in the highway? Somebody has to water it. They have water to survive. That's a fact. So I said, in my little pipe has this reservoir. It spreads out 3 feet or more. And it's 10 to reason that all underground watering systems, like he's talking about, or in a way, you know, and it's a water cycle. So anyway, this water is spread out for miles, and all the water evaporates, and when they evaporate, it rises. And it rises to the surface, and it feeds all the plants that we don't want. That's Mother Nature. Okay. So I discovered that, and I also discovered that, you know, that is water, gas, the water the plant, no water liquid. Water liquid is the delivery guy. So the water has to evaporate, and wet the ground, and it rises. And so it goes and feeds all the plants in water. So I'm doing the same thing here, and I basically just for grass. And so I discovered the thing. Then I did another one, and you notice it's a T, okay? It doesn't have any holes. It's for the flower bed, okay? So on the other pipe, I would put, about 10 gallons. It takes 6 hours to evaporate. Okay? On this one, you know, I would put water, and of course that potty mix, and the same deal. Water evaporates through those holes, rises up, and wets my potty mix. And so it would take 4 days to evaporate. So then I put mulch. It went up to 7 days. So then, you know, the plant died because there wasn't much water. But I knew the reason why. But anyway, over here, right, that pipe, 6 hours. The heat was dying on. This one, up to 7 days after I put mulch. I did another experiment with San Agustin. I made the same trench, put the same pipe, with the holes up, covered it up. In 7 days, it never evaporated. And so I scratched in my head, what's going on here, okay? And the question was triggers evaporation, heat, okay? Now over here, it's just dirt and the heat just burning on that pipe, so 6 hours to operate. And over here, the particles, it's like insulation. In the grass, also insulation. So I took out the pipe, flipped it over, and hold down, and so that water spreads out. That means that water is not evaporating as fast as the other. So that grass is gonna have healthy water, and it's gonna be green all the time. So basically, what it is, but on this one, on this thing here, you see that teeth? Let me show you. Where's my teeth? Up here. With this, I discovered that I could use salt water to irrigate. Do you know how? Why? Look, like here, I put water, right? And that water evaporates. The only thing that stays here is the same thing that is in that glass, okay? The water evaporates, rises through here, and the only thing that rises through here is what? Water in gas form, and that water is everything, okay? So then so it took a minute to figure it out. So if I put salt water in here, what's gonna happen? The same thing. The only thing rising here is water in plant. So now, this is my desalination plant. Okay? And when I found this out, I started a letter to universities, such A&M, and like always, nobody answered. And later on, one guy did for me. He said, that thing about you using salt water for irrigation has to go through desalination plant. And I said, no, it don't. So I explained to him, what happened. And the guy said, oh, I see what you're doing. You're doing desalination by using evaporation to wet the ground. I said, you said it. And so I said, I'd like to experiment some more, and maybe pay a grant. I sent these guys, so it sent me somewhere in West Dakota. A&M has a farm, and they do experiments, and I'm talking to this guy, a doctorate education. It's not a choice in this, it's a desalination, really good. I don't know what he put in mind, but anyway, well, I said, finish the presentation. I said, you might maybe help me, get a grant, experiment on here or something. The guy brushed me off. He said, no, I already won my quota for grant. So the only thing I can figure for that is that if it doesn't come from doctor of irrigation, they don't want to hear it. And so here I am, I go and continue to do my experiments, and what happened is you turn the page and the flower ballot, and this is what I did in that first experiment. It's a housing plantation, and as you see the pictures, I scraped the land, I made 2 ditches, I put the pipe, but I wrapped it up with garden cloth to protect it from the dirt going in there. And then as you see the flower, that's water feed, that's a hose that delivers water to my 2 pipes. And I have a timer, that's the only mechanical part. Everything is not gluing in. So anyway, I have that part, I had that timer at every 4 hours for 5 minutes of filling. And so when I covered it up, so once you let that, you cover it, you're ready for irrigation. You don't have to do anything, okay? You just let it run for a couple of days or weeks to get the water, spread it out. And then you can start planting. So when I had it prepared, my daughter sells palmas and stuff like that, and she brought me this grass that was brown. I knew, and she wanted me to pay $150. I said, no, I'm not doing that. But anyway, I knew that in the future what would happen. And so as you go along, it took about 8 months, and the last picture, that's what you see, without overhead water. The system does not have that water on it. It doesn't, and it doesn't have the 50% evaporation. So if your bill is $100, right, then you pay $50 for evaporation gas. This does not have that. And in the future, I'm talking about this system having a big positive effort in solving the water problem that we have in the future, and I'll explain. Because right now, the future as far as water for irrigation for people is bleak. There's going to be no water or rationing and all that stuff. But anyway, this system that I have will help in reducing that. Okay. So anyway, so go to the next page, and there is the water cycle. Very few people know about this water cycle. And so this is where I found out that Mother Nature waters all the plants with water. And so there's a lot of water, guys. So what happens from the bottom, you have this saturated zone, which is aquifer and water pockets and such, and then the capillary thing. That is when you put water on a napkin to spread it out, or water on top and spread it out. That's a capillary filtration. What it's doing is starting the process of evaporation. So all these waters are the billions of years evaporating and rising, and we're now in here are drowning in gas water. So when this water gets to the surface, okay, what it does is enter through the roots, through the stems, and up the branches, and out the leaf, continues on to the sky, okay? And so that is what feeds the plants. That's the process of Mother Nature feeding plants. And so it's the water and gas one, it is. Okay, so then when it rises up to the atmosphere, that water then, in the cold weather, starts to condensate into clouds. And as you see, when they get a lot of water, what happens? Rain comes down. But more important is drinking water, pure drinking water. Okay? And so this is the key to survival. Okay? Because they say way back in the future that you and your girlfriend are there, and you see animals and plants and fruits and all that stuff, but you don't have any water. You don't see any water. So then what happens? Rain comes down, so you now got rivers and lakes and stuff like that, and you got water to survive. But you cannot survive on water alone, right? So what do? We eat the animals, and we take the vegetables and stuff. So from there, we end up here today. And so this is, very few people know about this. And I did a drawing of this before I even saw this from the government. And so it's very important. So now you go to the next page, where these are the two systems that I designed to water. And if you notice, it's like a trench. And I got plastic on it, and plastic over it, and only a hole for the plant. And so that means when I get water in there, it'll spread out, but it won't spread out beyond those points. So that water is watering the plant. So I'm not watering the middle of this. So when there's water overhead, they cover the whole area, right? Well, I only covered 60% of that area. And 1 acre, 1 inch of acre is 27,000 gallons in 1 inch. But 1 inch of rain or 1 inch of watering is not enough for the water. You gotta put more water until it goes down into the root zone, which is 24 inches from the surface. And so what happens here with the water, that pipe, that water is full about for 10, 15 minutes. The rest of the time is empty. There's air in there. And when they cultivate the land, or they take a fixed fork and they move the more dirt, that is called aeration. That is for water, more water and air to go into the root zone, for the root. So that pipe at night is empty, like say, for only 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and the rest is air. So that makes that plant, when you have more air there, the root, it gets more roots, and so that makes the product, whatever, a lot better. And so anyway, so I saw a guy, let me go to this, then we go to the next one. Now this is the one that uses salt for irrigation. And this is how it works. It's the same thing as the tea, right? Here's the water. And so I got this thing in the middle that separates the contaminated water. So you can put any water. You can put river water, lake water, sewer water, anything that you want to put there that is H2O, a liquid, will evaporate and rise through those holes. And so the only thing watering the plants again is what is it? Water and gas. everything in that water stays between, that thing separate, because the only thing rising to the hose is the water that waters the plant. And if you look at that there, one of them, the water is from the air conditioner. And if you look at it and check it out, you see that it's clean. And then the air conditioner, you look at the air conditioner, look at what it's got. Check the bottom of the glass to the top. What do you see? You see all those chemicals? So that's the same thing that stays here with any water. Okay?
How do you keep the holes from getting stopped up?
That's gonna go from the salt water, right?
Well, very simple. I put garden cloth and wrap it around.
No, but in the pipe,
In
you're gonna
this here?
you're gonna put salt water in there, right?
On this one?
Yes.
Yeah, well, this one, it stays there.
So after a while, with all the sediment, how do you clean up the
The
pipe?
process of evaporation, when water, like right there, that was full, that was like 3 inches high, okay? And water evaporated and left everything that's in the water compound stays here. The only thing rising to here is water in gas form. It's still water and the
So after a while or years, it wouldn't get clogged up the pipe? With
Yeah, that was my question.
No, unless you got something you throw in there. But on the other pipe that has holes, at the beginning, like I said, I had the holes rising up, like in the grass, and they didn't evaporate. So then I flipped the holes on it, so now so as soon as it spreads out, it starts the stage of evaporation. So this is the two phases of water, and so I'm able to now. This is the key to open the floodgates of seawater to irrigate. Okay, and so let me explain now how everything works in this last page. There's the general population, us, we only use 20% of the water, but irrigation gets 80%, right? That's a lot of water. But you look at the next drawing there, anybody waters overhead loses 50% to evaporation. So they only use 40%, right? And so the rest is evaporated, but they're paying for it. And so now with the underground system, right, this evaporating process does not happen. For example, if a guy, an irrigator, uses 2 million gallons, right, but he loses 1 million to evaporation. But then if he goes underground, he's only going to use 1 million. So what happens to the million he was using before? It goes back to the 20%. So anything that you take away from the 80% goes to the 20%. But look, if this equation 20/80 stays like that, in 20, 30 years, there are going to be a lot of problems. And right now, California has a lot of acres that they can't water. In Texas also. I saw a guy, behind acres of onion, and they were this big. And he said, in 8 hours, I'm not going to have water. And so that's about a month ago. So now he's got a harvest that small, when later on they will grow that big. And so now this guy says, I don't have water, but you do if you use salt water. Now salt water, for example, if you use salt water, let's say, where you have water droughts, no rain, and so there's no water. But you have, in California, you have all that water in the ocean that you can bring in and use this system to water. So if there's a drought, it doesn't matter. You got the water, you need the water by using the salt water. So in general, everybody that starts using salt water and regular water are actually contributing to the 20%, right? Which it's actually a secondary resource water. So if the 20%, and more people are growing, rises up, let's say 10%, that's half of the water we have available today. And so this has to be done. They have to, if they want to make it, if by the time that we expect to have all those problems, the 20% will help avoid all those. So it has to be a government effort to provide like grants, at least for the pipe and the tax rates and so on. But they have to express or move this information so that they can get started and start moving the 20% up instead of cutting down. So it's very important. And I went to Henry Cuellar and I sent him a package like this, and I had a meeting with him, supposedly, his office in Washington. I said, you have this meeting at this day at 10:30. So I go there pretty nice and everything, dressed up, and I go there and I say, what meeting? We don't know anything about it. No, the office here. So I said it, and then about 3 weeks ago, I write a letter, says up here, okay, we'll answer you right away or whatever. 3 weeks haven't had an answer to get together again. But he's the key now to take the football up to a higher level, because this government has to play a big part in solving this 20%. Not only this, but the whole world. So this two systems are contributing to the 20%.
I would just really get with some irrigators and some developers and tell them we're gonna save them water and do your test stuff, you know? Like in Laredo, like I would get with the irrigators, the company.
Well,
No,
you-
hold on, let me talk.
hold on.
I would just get with the irrigators, with developers, show them the system that they can save water and stuff like that for now. So when you do go and have a bigger thing, you have a lot of areas that have your system.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but we don't have enough time, but I'm just saying, that's something I would do, it looks really great.
I understand that, so people have to know about it. Now I'm getting, in my advertising.
No, but I'm just saying, I would get with the irrigators in Laredo and say, hey, this is a good system.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, but that's the idea, of this system. Because, the city,
But like I'm saying, we don't have that much time.
Yeah.
But I get you. It's what it
Yeah,
is.
but look, all water, overhead waters, first of all, they lose 50%.
No, I know.
Yeah, and I'm just telling you, okay, I'm just pointing out. But they have, by nature, they have water runoff, right? Now, that water runoff is affecting the asphalt.
Yeah, we brought it up.
Big problem.
I bring it up all the time. It happens on McPherson. Just grab McPherson in the morning.
Yeah. So now my next step is hopefully meet with Mr. Cuellar so that hopefully they move on. But I mean, I'm selling this system, I'm doing that. And do you know where Religious Goods Center is?
So we
Okay,
adjourn.
they have a flower bed, it's beautiful.
Essentially.
And the trees, grows everything. You know what
Meeting is
happened?
come to an end because
Right.
we lost the court.
He cut everything, he just has a 5-foot step. You pass by there, ya están otra vez creciendo. But it's underground watering system. And the holes with the air, I think is why they're growing so fast.
Mr. Chairman, I call for the question, so you can go ahead and proceed with.
So I'm not, this is just information, but
Yeah.
like I say, it's very valuable.
That's good information. I mean, it looks like we've lost two of our committee members, so we no longer have a quorum.
Yeah, we should-
I guess we're.
Yeah, just close.
We'll form again. There's no need to take a vote because we don't have enough to take a vote. So we'll
There's
just-
no items to vote.
There's no items to vote on
And
that
I don't know if you
particular
want to
topic
discuss
anyway.
items for the next meeting. I don't know if there's any issues that.
Just to review what we said.
We'll review the items in the reports,
Yeah.
and then if you can tell me what detail you want on the reports, these comments, I'll go ahead and issue out more information and.
The more, yeah, it was real simple. Just only that they're hitting the targets and we're
So
reading.
you work in the utility or what?
Yes, sir.
Huh?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So what do you think about this?
I already told you.
Yeah, okay, well, great,
Yeah, but I would. I would.
Nice to promote it, no?
Cristina tiene como motion to adjourn.
Well,
Just for the record.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, but look this.
I'll move to adjourn. I don't, we don't have a vote to move, but I'll move to adjourn. Anybody disagree with adjourn?
Find out.
No.